It's just another calm morning in your kitchen. The sunlight filters in through half-drawn curtains, casting a warm glow on the familiar scene. Your favorite mug of coffee steaming gently, the newspaper folded neatly on the table, and in front of you, a bowl of golden crisp flakes you've eaten for years. The sound of the spoon clinking against the ceramic bowl is almost comforting. You take each bite with a sense of reassurance, thinking you've made a wise, healthy choice. After all, the box promised whole grain, low fat, and even heart healthy. But then, somewhere between sips of coffee and the last few spoonfuls, the day takes a sharp, terrifying turn. At first, you notice a slight blurring in your vision. You blink, assuming it's just your glasses. Then, an odd heaviness creeps into your right hand, and before you realize what's happening, the spoon slips out of your grasp, clattering onto the table. Your tongue feels thick, your words stumble out jumbled and slurred. Panic sets in as you try to stand, but one side of your body refuses to cooperate. Within minutes, your quiet morning has turned into a race against time. I wish I could tell you this is rare, but as a brain doctor specializing in seniors' health, I've seen too many mornings end this way. The heartbreaking part? These strokes aren't always triggered by what people think: heavy fried breakfasts, fatty meats, or obvious junk food. Often, the silent culprit is sitting right there in a colorful box in your pantry. A breakfast cereal marketed as healthy, but loaded with hidden sugars, refined starches, and chemical additives. You might be thinking, how can cereal, something I've eaten for years, cause something so serious? The answer lies in how our bodies change as we age. After 60, your blood vessels become more fragile, your arteries less elastic, and your body's ability to process sugar slows dramatically. That means the same bowl of cereal that barely registered as a blip on your blood sugar radar in your 40s can now cause a dangerous spike, raising blood pressure, thickening the blood, and creating the perfect conditions for a clot to form. The deception is subtle but deadly. Manufacturers often add just enough whole grain to legally earn that label, but then mix in refined corn syrup solids, malt extract, and sugar in multiple disguises: brown rice syrup, cane juice, fructose. To your taste buds, it's satisfying. To your arteries, it's a shockwave. One of my patients, a 72-year-old retired teacher, lived by her morning ritual: one measured cup of her favorite fiber-rich cereal with skim milk. She believed it kept her weight stable and her heart healthy. But over time, her blood pressure began creeping up, and small, silent blockages started forming in the vessels of her brain. She didn't notice anything until the morning she collapsed in her kitchen. Tests later showed the spike in her blood sugar, and blood pressure after that cereal was enough to trigger a transient ischemic attack, a warning stroke. This isn't about a single bowl of cereal ruining your health overnight. It's about the daily repetition, the way these quick digesting carbohydrates hammer your system every morning, creating inflammation, encouraging plaque buildup, and damaging the delicate inner lining of your arteries. For seniors whose cardiovascular system is already under strain, the effect is multiplied. Before we go any further, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 9 hidden dangers in your healthy breakfast cereal, starting with how aging arteries respond to these foods differently than younger ones. Once you understand this first truth, you might never see your morning bowl the same way again. And in the next section, I'll explain exactly why your blood vessels, after 60, are so much more vulnerable to the damage these cereals cause. As we age, our bodies undergo changes that are subtle on the outside, but profound on the inside, especially in our cardiovascular system. One of the most important changes, and one that most seniors don't think about, is what happens to the arteries that feed your brain. When you're young, your arteries are flexible and responsive. They expand easily to accommodate changes in blood flow, and their inner lining, called the endothelium, stays smooth and resilient. This flexibility is one of the body's greatest defenses against sudden blood pressure spikes or clot formation. But after the age of 60, a process called vascular stiffening becomes more pronounced. Years of wear and tear from elevated blood pressure, cholesterol, inflammation, and even normal metabolic activity leave your arteries less elastic. Imagine trying to inflate a brand new balloon versus one that's been sitting in a drawer for years. The older balloon stretches less, and the same is true for your blood vessels. This stiffness makes it harder for your circulatory system to handle sudden surges in blood volume or pressure. Now, here's where your morning cereal comes in. Many popular breakfast cereals, yes, even the ones labeled healthy or heart-friendly, are made from refined grains and contain multiple forms of sugar. When you eat them, these sugars are rapidly broken down into glucose, flooding your bloodstream in minutes. In a younger person, the arteries can expand slightly to handle this surge, and the body's insulin response is fast and effective. In someone over 60, the stiffened arteries can't accommodate the sudden increase in volume as well, and the body's slower metabolic response means glucose stays high longer. This combination increases shear stress on the artery walls, which can cause microtears in the delicate endothelium. Once that inner lining is damaged, the body tries to repair it. But in doing so, it often lays down cholesterol-rich plaque at the injury site. Over time, these plaques can narrow the arteries, making it easier for a blood clot to form. If that clot blocks a vessel feeding the brain, the result is a stroke. The tragedy is that this isn't a single dramatic event caused by one bad meal. It's the accumulation of small injuries, day after day, year after year. Let me tell you about Mr. Thompson, a 65-year-old retired carpenter I treated last year. He was in good shape overall, walked daily, and didn't smoke. His only vice, if you could even call it that, was his love for a certain high-fiber cereal he'd eaten every morning since his late 40s. When he came to my clinic after experiencing dizzy spells and brief moments of confusion, his scans showed significant narrowing in his carotid arteries, the main vessels delivering blood to the brain. His blood work revealed consistently elevated glucose levels in the morning, despite not having diabetes. The culprit, that cereal, which delivered nearly 20 grams of sugar per serving once you counted all the natural sweeteners and dried fruit. Mr. Thompson's case is a perfect example of how even seemingly small daily habits can have outsized effects on aging arteries. He thought he was making a safe choice, but in reality, he was exposing his vascular system to repeated stress that it could no longer absorb without consequence. The takeaway here is simple. After 60, your arteries demand a different kind of care. What you could eat without harm in your 30s or 40s might now be a direct threat to your brain health. High glycemic foods like sugary cereals create pressure surges your stiffened arteries can't handle. And the more often you subject your vessels to these surges, the greater the risk of a stroke. And if you think sugar is the only problem, wait until you hear about the deceptive way cereal companies market healthy boxes that are anything but. In the next section, I'll reveal the hidden sugar trap built into these products and how even the most careful shopper can get caught. Walk down any cereal aisle and you'll see a colorful wall of boxes covered in health claims: whole grain, high fiber, low fat, heart healthy. For many shoppers, especially seniors who are trying to make better food choices, these labels feel like a green light. You trust them. You believe the cereal inside will fuel your day without harming your health. Unfortunately, the truth is far less comforting. The food industry has mastered the art of making products look healthy without actually being healthy. Take the phrase, whole grain. To earn that badge, a cereal only needs a portion of its grains to be whole. The rest can be refined flour stripped of most, nutrients and fiber, designed to digest quickly and spike blood sugar. The same goes for high fiber. A cereal can technically be high in fiber and still contain massive amounts of sugar, artificial flavors, and preservatives. This is what I call the hidden sugar trap. Cereal makers know you're watching for the word sugar on the label, so they disguise it under different names: evaporated cane juice, brown rice syrup, malt extract, molasses, honey, fructose, dextrose, and more. They might sprinkle in dried fruit, which sounds wholesome but often comes coated in additional sugar. A cereal that seems innocent at first glance can pack as much sugar per serving as a frosted donut. Let's break it down with an example. A healthy granola cereal might list just 7 grams of sugar on the front label, but when you read the ingredient list, you find sugar in 3 or 4 different forms scattered throughout. That 7 grams is just for the dry cereal before you add milk. If you use sweetened almond milk or pour a slightly heaping cup instead of a strict measured serving, you can easily double the sugar intake without realizing it. And because these sugars are paired with refined carbs, your body absorbs them at lightning speed, causing that harmful spike in blood glucose and blood pressure. I once treated a patient named Evelyn, 70, who prided herself on never touching junk food. She avoided soda, candy, and dessert almost completely, but every morning she enjoyed a hearty bowl of low-fat, whole-grain cereal with skim milk and a handful of raisins. When she came in, complaining of headaches and occasional blurry vision, her lab results showed her fasting glucose was consistently elevated and her triglycerides were climbing. Evelyn was stunned when we traced the issue back to her cereal. Once she swapped it for a breakfast rich in protein and low glycemic vegetables, her symptoms improved dramatically within weeks. Why does this matter more after 60? Because your body's ability to handle glucose is diminished. The pancreas, which produces insulin, doesn't respond as quickly or efficiently, and muscle mass, which helps absorb glucose, tends to decrease. This means even moderate sugar intake can have a stronger, longer-lasting effect on your blood vessels. The hidden sugar trap isn't just about sweet taste. It's about the silent stress it puts on your entire circulatory system. The worst part? Many seniors choose these cereals specifically to protect their hearts, believing the labels and marketing. Instead, they're unknowingly feeding the very conditions, like hypertension, atherosclerosis, and insulin resistance, that make strokes more likely. If this sounds discouraging, don't worry. We're building toward solutions. But before we talk about alternatives, you need to understand just how quickly these cereals can trigger a dangerous response in your body. In the next section, I'll show you what happens inside your arteries and blood vessels in the very minutes after your first bite, and why that morning bowl can be more damaging than you ever imagined. Picture this. You've just poured your cereal, maybe added some fruit and a splash of milk, and within the first few minutes of eating, your body is already responding dramatically. The refined grains and sugars in most popular cereals are digested rapidly, releasing glucose into your bloodstream at an accelerated pace. In younger adults, the body quickly sends insulin to move that glucose into cells for energy. But in seniors, the process is slower, and the blood sugar lingers longer at higher levels. What many don't realize is that this isn't just a sugar issue, it's a pressure issue. Glucose in high amounts triggers your body to release more insulin, which can also activate the sympathetic nervous system. This is the same system that responds to stress, and part of that reaction involves tightening blood vessels and increasing heart rate. As a result, your blood pressure can rise sharply within 20 to 30 minutes of eating certain cereals. For arteries that are already stiffened from age, this rapid surge can be dangerous. It creates shear stress. Think of water suddenly gushing through an old, brittle pipe. This force can cause microscopic injuries to the inner lining of your arteries, making them more susceptible to plaque formation and clotting. In someone with existing arterial narrowing, it can even trigger a blockage on the spot. One of my patients, Robert, a 74-year-old former postal worker, learned this the hard way. He came to me after experiencing dizzy spells every morning, about half an hour after breakfast. At first, he thought it was dehydration or low blood sugar, but home blood pressure readings told another story. His systolic pressure, the top number, was jumping by 30 points within half an hour of eating his favorite, lightly sweetened cereal. When we tested him in the clinic, the pattern repeated exactly. The combination of refined carbs and hidden sugars was creating a blood pressure roller coaster that his aging cardiovascular system simply couldn't tolerate. The danger isn't limited to a single spike. Day after day, these repetitive surges train your blood vessels to stay in a state of heightened tension. Over time, this can lead to chronic high blood pressure, which further damages the arteries feeding your brain. This cycle, spike, damage, partial repair, spike again, is one of the quietest but most destructive pathways to a stroke. You might be wondering, if this happens so quickly, wouldn't I feel it? Not always. In fact, many seniors have no noticeable symptoms during these spikes. You might feel fine, maybe even energized, right after breakfast, but the underlying damage is still occurring. It's only when the cumulative effect reaches a tipping point, like a small clot breaking loose or a vessel wall finally giving way, that the danger becomes obvious. The lesson here is that you can't judge a food's impact solely by how you feel after eating it. Your vascular system could be under silent attack even when you feel normal. And for people over 60, the margin for error is much smaller. A single morning spike may not cause harm, but hundreds or thousands over the years create the perfect setup for a life-altering event. But sugar and blood pressure aren't the only ways cereals can sabotage your brain health. In the next section, I'll share a real-life case of a man whose healthy breakfast habit led to a stroke scare, and the surprising details of how it unfolded. His story might sound uncomfortably familiar. Mr. Harold was 68 years old when I first met him, a retired accountant with a meticulous lifestyle. He kept his home spotless, balanced his checkbook to the penny, and followed what he believed was a textbook healthy diet. Every morning for over 20 years, he started his day with the same routine: a medium bowl of brand-based cereal, skim milk, and a sprinkle of dried cranberries. He took pride in his choice, often telling friends he was doing everything right to keep his heart and brain sharp. One winter morning, Harold's routine was disrupted in a way that would change his life. As he stood in the kitchen pouring his cereal, he felt fine, perhaps even better than usual. But about 20 minutes after finishing breakfast, a strange numbness began creeping into the left side of his face. He ignored it at first, assuming it was just a sign he had slept awkwardly. Within minutes, his left arm felt heavy, and when he tried to call out to his wife, his words came out garbled. His wife recognized the signs of a stroke and called emergency services immediately. By the time Harold reached the hospital, the symptoms were beginning to fade, a fortunate sign pointing to a transient ischemic attack, or TIA. Often called a mini-stroke, a TIA is a warning that a full stroke could be on the horizon if nothing changes. When I reviewed Harold's medical history, a few things stood out. He didn't smoke. He walked regularly. His cholesterol was slightly elevated, but nothing alarming. However, his fasting glucose levels were often on the high side of normal, and his morning blood pressure readings were unpredictable. We conducted a controlled test in the clinic. Harold arrived fasting, and we measured his baseline blood pressure and glucose. Then he ate his usual breakfast, the same cereal and skim milk he'd trusted for decades. Within 30 minutes, his glucose spiked by more than 50 milligrams per deciliter, and his systolic blood pressure jumped from 128 to 158 millimeters of mercury. For a man with slightly stiffened arteries, that was more than enough to create turbulence in the blood flow to his brain. Combined with a small plaque deposit in his carotid artery, it was a recipe for a TIA. What shocked Harold most was that his cereal was marketed as low-fat, high-fiber, and heart-healthy. Nowhere on the box did it warn about the 16 grams of added sugar hiding behind terms like evaporated cane juice and molasses, or how those sugars, paired with refined wheat, could hit his bloodstream almost as fast as candy. Harold's story illustrates a crucial point. Doing everything right, according to conventional wisdom, can still be wrong for an aging body. The foods you've tolerated for years can become hazardous after 60 because your metabolic resilience is reduced, your arteries are less forgiving, and your body's repair systems are slower. After the incident, Harold and I worked together to rebuild his breakfast routine. He swapped his cereal for a protein-rich omelet with vegetables and added a small portion of berries for antioxidants and fiber. Within weeks, his blood pressure stabilized, his morning glucose spikes flattened, and his energy improved. Most importantly, he hasn't had another TIA. But there's another layer to this story, one that doesn't just involve sugar or blood pressure. Many cereals contain hidden fats, specifically trans fats and hydrogenated oils, that directly contribute to plaque buildup in your arteries. And these fats don't just affect your heart, they can block the blood flow to your brain, setting the stage for a major stroke. In the next section, I'll uncover the cholesterol cereal connection and explain why that crunchy morning bite might be coating your arteries with more than just flavor. When most people think about breakfast cereal and cholesterol, they imagine the marketing slogans, "helps lower cholesterol," or "made with oats for heart health." But what those glossy boxes rarely mention is that many cereals, especially the processed, flavored, or clustered varieties, contain ingredients that can do the exact opposite. Hidden in the ingredient lists are trans fats, hydrogenated oils, and other processed additives that quietly work against your cardiovascular system. Trans fats, even in small amounts, are a serious problem. They're created when liquid oils are chemically altered to become solid at room temperature, a process called hydrogenation. This makes them last longer on the shelf and gives cereals that satisfying crunch that stays crisp in milk. The problem is, trans fats raise your LDL, bad, cholesterol while lowering your HDL, good, cholesterol, a dangerous combination that accelerates plaque buildup inside your arteries. For someone over 60, whose arteries are already less flexible and possibly narrowed from decades of wear, the effect of trans fats is magnified. Plaque buildup, also called atherosclerosis, narrows the channels through which your blood flows. When this narrowing happens in the carotid arteries of your neck or the smaller vessels in your brain, it increases the risk that even a small blood clot can cause a stroke. One of my patients, Linda, age 73, came to me after a routine carotid ultrasound revealed significant narrowing in both of her neck arteries. She was shocked. She didn't eat fast food, didn't fry her meals, and cooked most of her food at home. But when we went through her diet in detail, we found the culprit, her daily granola clusters cereal. The clusters were bound together with partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, and a single serving contained just under the legal reporting limit for trans fats. That means the label could still say 0 grams trans fat while she was consuming them every day. Over years, those trace amounts added up. This labeling loophole is a huge problem for seniors. In the United States, food manufacturers are allowed to round down any trans fat content under 0.5 grams per serving to 0 grams on the label. But if you're eating that cereal every morning, those 0 grams quickly become several grams a week, and it only takes a small amount of trans fat to raise your risk of stroke significantly. And it's not just the fats themselves. Many cereals use hydrogenated oils to coat dried fruit, improve texture, or bind flavor clusters together. These fats are often paired with sugar and refined carbs, creating a triple threat. They damage your arteries chemically, encourage cholesterol-rich plaque to form, and then cause post-meal spikes in blood pressure and glucose that can rupture or destabilize those plaques. For seniors, the risk is twofold. First, you have less physiological reserve, meaning your body has a harder time compensating for sudden changes in blood flow. Second, any clot or plaque that breaks loose has a shorter distance to travel before it reaches a critical vessel in the brain. That's why even seemingly small dietary insults can tip the balance toward a serious event. When I explained this to Linda, she immediately switched her breakfast routine. We focused on truly whole, unprocessed foods, steel-cut oats topped with walnuts and fresh berries, or scrambled eggs with leafy greens. Within months, her cholesterol profile improved, her HDL climbed, and her LDL dropped. Her follow-up ultrasound showed stabilization of her arterial narrowing, a sign that the damage had slowed, if not stopped. The takeaway here is that your cereal choice can quietly influence your cholesterol and artery health every single day. You might think you're doing your heart a favor, but if your cereal contains any form of hydrogenated oil, you're increasing your stroke risk instead. And while fats and cholesterol get a lot of attention, there's another hidden danger in cereal that seniors need to know about, something you might assume is beneficial because it's fortified. In the next section, I'll reveal how certain vitamins and minerals, when added in excess to cereals, can actually raise your health risks instead of lowering them. For decades, fortified with vitamins and minerals has been a selling point. For breakfast cereals, the implication is clear. Even if the cereal isn't perfect, at least it's giving you extra nutrients your body needs. For seniors who worry about deficiencies, this sounds reassuring. But here's the hidden truth. More isn't always better. In fact, for people over 60, too much of certain added nutrients can create real health risks. Cereal manufacturers often fortify their products with synthetic forms of vitamins and minerals to replace those lost during processing. You'll see labels boasting added iron, folic acid, vitamin B12, niacin, and even vitamin D. While these nutrients are essential in the right amounts, they can become problematic in excess, especially when they're consumed daily, year after year. Let's start with iron. While iron deficiency is a concern for some younger adults, it's less common in seniors, particularly in men and postmenopausal women. Excess iron can accumulate in the body, leading to oxidative stress, which damages cells and tissues, including the delicate lining of your blood vessels. This oxidative damage can contribute to atherosclerosis and, by extension, increase the risk of stroke. Then there's folic acid, the synthetic form of folate. It's added to many cereals to help prevent birth defects, but in older adults, high levels of folic acid have been linked in some studies to masking vitamin B12 deficiency. This is dangerous because B12 deficiency can cause nerve damage, cognitive decline, and even increase homocysteine levels in the blood, a known risk factor for cardiovascular disease and stroke. Vitamin D, while beneficial for bone health, is another nutrient that can be problematic in excess. High doses from fortified foods and supplements combined can lead to calcium buildup in the arteries, a condition called vascular calcification. This stiffens the blood vessels, making them less able to handle changes in blood pressure and flow, yet another stroke risk factor. I remember treating George, a 70-year-old retired pilot, who was baffled by his elevated blood calcium levels and vascular stiffness despite having a generally healthy lifestyle. After reviewing his diet, I discovered he was eating a fortified cereal every morning, drinking fortified milk, and taking a high-dose vitamin D supplement. His total intake of vitamin D was nearly triple the recommended daily amount. Over the years, this contributed to calcium deposits in his arterial walls. By simply adjusting his diet to rely on whole, unprocessed foods and tailoring his supplements to his actual needs, we reduced his excess intake and stabilized his calcium levels. The problem is compounded by the fact that fortification is a one-size-fits-all approach. It doesn't consider your age, sex, or health conditions. For seniors, whose nutrient requirements differ from the general population, this can easily lead to chronic overconsumption of certain vitamins and minerals without any obvious symptoms until the damage is done. This isn't to say all fortification is bad. For some seniors, especially those with limited diets, fortified foods can help fill nutritional gaps. The key is awareness and moderation. Check your labels, know your actual nutrient needs, and remember that real food sources, like leafy greens for folate, lean meats for B12, and moderate sun exposure for vitamin D, are generally safer and better absorbed. In the next section, we'll step away from the problem foods and look at solutions. I'll share brain-safe breakfast alternatives that not only avoid these hidden dangers, but also actively protect your arteries and improve your overall vascular health. By now, you've seen how something as ordinary as a bowl of cereal can quietly sabotage your vascular health through hidden sugars, blood pressure spikes, unhealthy fats, and even excessive fortification. The good news is, you don't have to give up breakfast or resign yourself to a bland, joyless routine. There are plenty of brain-safe, artery-friendly alternatives that not only avoid these pitfalls, but actively protect your health. The key is to focus on foods that release energy slowly, provide essential nutrients without overload, and reduce inflammation. For seniors, this often means prioritizing high-quality protein, healthy fats, and low glycemic carbohydrates. 1. Steel-cut oats with nuts and berries. Unlike instant or quick oats, steel-cut oats are minimally processed, meaning they digest more slowly and cause a gentler rise in blood sugar. Topping them with walnuts, almonds, or chia seeds adds healthy fats and protein, while fresh berries provide antioxidants that combat oxidative stress in the brain. Blueberries, in particular, have been shown to improve memory and cognitive function in older adults. 2. Vegetable omelet. With olive oil, eggs are a powerhouse of nutrients, including choline, which supports brain function. Combine them with spinach, tomatoes, and bell peppers for a boost of fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Cooking with a small amount of extra virgin olive oil provides monounsaturated fats that help keep cholesterol in check and protect arterial health. 3. Greek yogurt, parfait. Opt for plain, unsweetened Greek yogurt, which is high in protein and probiotics. Layer it with fresh fruit, unsweetened coconut flakes, and a sprinkle of flax seeds for omega-3 fatty acids. This combination supports digestive health, helps manage blood sugar, and provides sustained energy. 4. Whole grain toast with avocado and smoked salmon. This pairing delivers healthy fats from avocado and heart-protective omega-3s from salmon. The whole grain bread, preferably dense and minimally processed, offers fiber that helps keep blood sugar stable. 5. Smoothies. With greens and protein, Blend spinach or kale with unsweetened almond milk, a scoop of protein powder, half a banana, and a small handful of berries. This gives you a nutrient-dense breakfast that's quick, portable, and gentle on your arteries. Just remember to avoid adding fruit juice or flavored yogurts, which can spike sugar levels. When switching from cereal to these alternatives, the first thing many of my patients notice is that they feel fuller longer and don't experience the mid-morning crash. That's because these meals avoid the rapid sugar absorption that leads to energy dips and cravings. Instead, they provide a steady release of glucose, which your brain and body can use more efficiently. Take the example of Margaret, a 69-year-old retired librarian who struggled with fatigue and occasional dizziness in the mornings. She switched from her multi-grain flakes cereal to a breakfast of scrambled eggs with spinach and a slice of whole grain toast topped with avocado. Within 2 weeks, her blood sugar readings had stabilized, her energy improved, and her dizzy spells disappeared. It's also worth noting that many of these alternative breakfasts can be prepped ahead of time. Steel-cut oats can be cooked in batches and reheated, vegetables can be chopped the night before, and smoothie ingredients can be portioned and frozen in bags for quick blending in the morning. The bottom line is this: protecting your brain and arteries doesn't require extreme diets or expensive specialty foods. It's about making simple swaps, removing the daily irritants that damage your vascular system and replacing them with foods that nourish and strengthen it. However, even the healthiest breakfast can be undermined if you pair it with the wrong beverage. In the next section, I'll show you the morning drink mistake that doubles the danger of sugary cereals and how to avoid turning your otherwise good breakfast into a hidden threat. You've swapped out the sugary cereal for a healthier breakfast, steel-cut oats, an omelet, maybe some Greek yogurt. But then you pour yourself a tall glass of orange juice, or maybe a heart-healthy fruit smoothie from the store. It feels like a smart choice. After all, fruit is good for you, right? Unfortunately, when it comes to protecting your arteries and brain, this is one of the most common mistakes I see seniors make. Fruit juice, even 100% pure, is essentially concentrated sugar water. Without the fiber from whole fruit, the natural sugars in juice are absorbed almost as quickly as table sugar. This means a single glass can spike your blood sugar nearly as much as a sugary cereal, and if you pair the two together, you've just doubled the impact. For seniors with stiffer arteries and slower glucose metabolism, this combination is like hitting your vascular system with a 1-2 punch. The same goes for many store-bought smoothies. Even when labeled as all natural, they often contain multiple servings of fruit, sweetened yogurt, or fruit concentrates, delivering a sugar load your body struggles to handle efficiently. Add that to a carbohydrate-heavy breakfast and your post-meal glucose, and blood pressure can soar. One patient, Daniel, 71, came to me frustrated because his blood sugar readings stayed high in the mornings, even after switching from cereal to oatmeal. When we examined his diet, the problem was clear. Every morning, he drank 12 ounces of orange juice with breakfast. On its own, his oatmeal caused a modest glucose rise, but with the juice, his blood sugar spiked nearly 40% higher and stayed elevated for hours. His blood pressure also jumped sharply, another sign of the sympathetic nervous system kicking in. This matters because these combined spikes don't just affect your energy levels. They increase oxidative stress, inflame your arterial walls, and make it easier for plaque to rupture. Over time, repeated episodes like this create the perfect conditions for a stroke. If you enjoy fruit in the morning, the safest approach is to eat it whole. The fiber slows sugar absorption, preventing those rapid surges in blood glucose. A handful of berries or half an apple, alongside a protein-rich breakfast, is far gentler on your body than a glass of juice. If you like smoothies, make them at home with a balanced ratio of vegetables to fruit, spinach, cucumber, a small piece of banana, and a few berries, plus a protein source like Greek yogurt or protein powder. Even drinks that seem harmless can be problematic. Sweetened coffee creamers, flavored milks, and energy waters often contain hidden sugars. For seniors already trying to manage blood pressure, cholesterol, or glucose, these small daily sugar hits can tip the scales in the wrong direction. The lesson here is simple. Your beverage is part of your meal. If you're careful about your food but ignore your drink, you could be undoing the benefits. For stroke prevention, aim to drink water, herbal tea, or black coffee if your doctor approves with breakfast. Now that we've examined the cereals, the additives, the hidden fats, and the beverages that can double the damage, it's time to pull it all together. In the final section, I'll recap the key lessons, give you clear, actionable breakfast rules, and leave you with safe, delicious options to protect your brain health for years to come. We've covered a lot of ground together, more than many people ever realize about something as simple as breakfast. And yet, when you think about the role your morning meal plays in your health, especially after 60, the picture becomes clear. What you choose to eat at the start of your day sets the tone not just for your energy levels, but for the health of your brain, heart, and arteries. We began with the hidden dangers of popular breakfast cereals, how they spike blood sugar and blood pressure, strain stiffened arteries, and set the stage for plaque buildup. We saw how the healthy image created by marketing often hides the truth. Added sugars under different names, refined grains disguised as whole grain, and oils that quietly raise your cholesterol. Talked about the risk of excessive fortification, the wrong kind of fats, and the way certain beverages can double the danger. The key message is simple but powerful. Aging changes the way your body handles food. The breakfast choices you made in your 30s or 40s without a second thought can now have far more serious consequences. Your arteries are less elastic, your metabolism slower, and your repair systems less forgiving. The margin for error is smaller, but the opportunity for improvement is still enormous. So, what can you do? Let's put it into clear, actionable rules. 1. Choose slow-digesting carbohydrates. Opt for steel-cut oats, quinoa, or whole grain breads that are truly whole, dense, seeded, and minimally processed. Avoid cereals, instant oats, and refined grains that cause rapid glucose spikes. 2. Pair carbs with protein and healthy fats. Eggs, Greek yogurt, nuts, and seeds help slow digestion, steady blood sugar, and keep you full longer. 3. Watch for hidden sugars, especially in healthy foods. Read ingredient lists carefully. Look for terms like syrup, juice, malt, or nectar, and remember that multiple forms of sugar add up quickly. 4. Avoid hydrogenated oils completely. Even small amounts of trans fats raise stroke risk. If you see partially hydrogenated on the label, put it back on the shelf. 5. Be cautious with fortified foods. If you're already taking supplements, you may not need heavily fortified cereals. Too much of certain vitamins and minerals, like iron or vitamin D, can harm your arteries. 6. Drink smart. Skip the juice, flavored creamers, and sweetened milks. Stick to water, herbal tea, or black coffee if tolerated. If you want fruit, eat it whole. 7. Build variety into your breakfasts. Rotate between options. Steel-cut oats with nuts and berries, veggie omelets, Greek yogurt parfaits, or avocado toast with smoked salmon. This keeps nutrition balanced and prevents overexposure to any single food. You don't have to give up taste or enjoyment to protect your health. In fact, many seniors who switch to brain-safe breakfasts find that their energy is more stable, their mental clarity improves, and they no longer experience mid-morning crashes or dizziness. I've seen it time and again. Patients who, after making these changes, watch their blood pressure stabilize, their cholesterol improve, and their risk factors for stroke drop significantly. Small, consistent adjustments truly can make a big difference, even if you've been eating the same way for decades. So, as you look at your pantry tomorrow morning, I hope you'll see it with new eyes. That box of cereal may seem harmless, even comforting, but you now know the truth. For seniors, it can be a silent threat. You have the power to replace it with choices that nourish and protect you, not just for today, but for years to come. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0 point. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another tip designed just for your health and longevity. Stay informed, stay proactive, and remember, your mornings can be the start of something much healthier.